Hello, in this video we're looking at Ratana Sutta, verse 5. Yam buddha setto parivarnayi suching samadhim anantakarikanyamahu. Sorry, I muffed that. Samadhim anantakarikanyamahu samadhina tena samona vijjati idam pidhamme ratanam pranitam. And I will read it now with the text up. Yang Buddha setto parivarnayi suchim samadhim anantarikanyamahu samadhina tena samona vijjati idam pidhamme ratanam panitam. So, Yam Suchim. Suchi, mostly that's found as an adjective meaning pure. Sanskrit shuchi, Pali suchi. But it can also be used as a noun meaning purity. And here that's what it seems to be. So in English we'd say that purity which the Buddha described. In Pali, which purity the Buddha described, saying exactly the same thing using different order. And that's what we have here. So yang suchim, which purity, meaning the purity which Buddha setto parivarnayi. The Buddha setto, the setto means the chiefest or best or supreme. I've done a note on setta in the explanatory glossary, which I'll just call up for you. Find, and then we do, there we are. So the best of Buddhas. It's from our root Shri, meaning to burn, then flame to give out light, then there's an adjective radiance, and then there's an adjective meaning splendid or glorious. And it's the same Shri that we see in Sri Lanka, or in Sanskrit pronounced Sri Lanka, and in the Blessed One in Sanskrit say Shri Bhagavan. And it makes a superlative from Shri, the superlative, the best, the chiefest, the best of, is a setta. And in this compound, the Buddha setta, the Buddha best, meaning the best of Buddhas. There have been numerous Buddhas, and here it's talking about the best of the Buddhas. And parivarnayi, described, again, it's from the root viri, meaning a cover originally, and I'll show you how that all comes about. Back to the explanatory glossary. Find the oops, I thought I had it there. Pause for a moment. So I've just seen the reason it didn't turn up is because I'd mistyped it to parivarnayi. Now it should copy. It should turn up in the explanatory glossary. Oh, still hasn't. Okay, problem rectified. Parivarnayi is from the root viri, meaning originally to cover or to obstruct. Viri is that from that same through the Germanic line, we have things like German Wehr, W-E-H-R, meaning defense, the Wehrmacht, the defense force. And from the meaning of blocking or obstructing, covering, we have the English word weir, as in a weir in a river, which is a partial barrier where you break the swift flow of water and the water then fills up and flows over the top. That's just a barrier rather than a complete dam. And from that idea of a cover, you get the varna, meaning which come to mean originally meant a cover, and then by extension the outward appearance of something, the appearance of whatever it is that is the outer cover of the solid body that you're looking at. And then by further extension, form or color. And by further extension, the color of the face, then complexion, then it came to mean beauty. So all from this root meaning of covering. And you can make a verb out of it. In Sanskrit, it would be varnayati, meaning to show the appearance or to explain the appearance of something. Varneti, to describe and then, or to explain, and then by extension to praise. And with the prefix pari, and in the aorist, we now have parivarnayi, meaning praised or extolled, declared the beauty of it. So this is one of those words where from the root vri, to cover or obstruct, we get these extension of meanings, finishing up with this verb meaning praising or extolling. So this, sorry, I've lost my text boxes again. Let's get them back. Table design, borders all. Here we are, got them back. So this yam suchim, which purity, the purity which Buddha said to the best of Buddhas parivarnai, ahu is an irregular verb and quite a common one. It means they have said. Also you'll find ahum, they have said, designated, stated to be. So they have, which they have stated to be the anantarikan or yam, so anantarikam yam ahu, which yam ahu, which they have said, insert to be the samadhim anantarikam, the uninterrupted samadhi. I'll explain this. Antara means, it's polysemic, it has various meanings. One of them is an interval. In fact, the interval is the time in between certain things. It's the inter, and it's from the same root we get the interior, so there's something in between. Antara. We get it in English via Latin as the interior. So the antara, sorry, in this context means in interval. So if something is anantara, it means without an interval, not stopping. You can make an adjective out of anantara by putting a ka on the end. And what happens when you make an adjective by putting a ka or ika on the end of a word? The ika, by the way, being exactly corresponding to the Greek ikos, and exactly etymologically the same as our English words that we make an adjective by putting an IC on something, ik, yogic, dharmic. It's that same ika. But when you put the ika ending on in Sanskrit, and the same applies mostly in Pali, you vridhi the first syllable, so you strengthen it from, so anantara without an interval, and strengthen that to anantarika, so intervalless, without interruption, without any pause. So samadhim anantarikam yam ahu, which they have said to be, or said is the samadhim anantarikam, this uninterrupted, this unpausing samadhi. Now, what's happened here with this double nya? What's happened is that they are actually two separate words, anantarikam followed by yam. They meet together and a sandhi applies, and where you wouldn't do this in Sanskrit, but you quite often see it in Pali. So anantarikam yam, the kam yam becomes kanyam, and that is what explains this double nya there. But I've split it up here in the parsing box so that you can see the words separately. Samadhina tena samo navijjati. So here we have samo in the masculine because samadhi is a masculine noun, and to that so there is no, and supply the word samadhi, there is no samadhi that is equal tena samadhina, to that samadhi. Samadhi instrumental form is samadhina. So tena samadhina samo samadhi navijjati. So a samadhi which is samo, the same or equal to tena samadhina, to that samadhi, navijjati, does not exist. Idam pidam me ratanam panitam, and we've had that. I don't think I've talked about navijjati here. Let me just call up the iPad to explain navijjati. Oops. Navijjati. It's from our root vid, and that root, you could probably say it's split into two roots, meaning one is to know and the other is to find. Remember, the really primitive Proto-Indo-European meaning was to see, to know, to see, to find, all semantically overlapping. If you make a passive of that, we're looking out Sanskrit, then we'll look at Pali. If you were making a passive of that, it is not, or it is found, it forms its passive in the regular way, root plus ya plus the atmanepada ending, vidyate, almost always found in the negative form. Navidyate means there isn't any, it is not to be found. Il n'y a pas. Now, in Pali, pretty much as you'd expect, the dya, the intervocalic dya, becomes a double j, vij, and these atmanepada endings are mostly lost in Pali. So vidyate becomes vidyati, literally, it is seen, it is known, it is found. And put in na vidyati means it does not exist, na vidyati. So samadhi, a samadhi, na vidyati, does not exist, which is samo, which is equal tena samadhina, to that samadhi. That is the samadhi as described in the first line. So just briefly analyze it once more. Yam suchim, which purity, meaning the purity that, Buddha seto, the Buddha best, the best of Buddhas, parivarnai, described. Yam ahu, which they have said, or which they have called or stated to be the anantarikam, the unpausing, uninterrupted. Bhikkhu describes as concentration without interval, fine, which they have stated to be the samadhim anantarikam, the the concentration without interval, without interruption or pause. Samadhina tena samona vijjati. So let's supply a samadhi here. A samadhi, which is samo, which is the same, tena samadhina, as that samadhi, in other words, the one just described, navijjati, does not exist, is not to be found. So I'll read through this verse once more. Yam buddha settho parivannai suchim samadhim anantarikanyamahu samadhina tena samo navijjati idampi dhamme ratanam panitam etena satchena suvatyuhutu. But I should just mention there's a long E at the end of Parivannayi. I'm going to change it to a short E in the parsing box because in regular prose it's this aorist ends in a short E. The E, it's been lengthened to a long E for the sake of the meter in the Pali. No grammatical difference. It's exactly the same word with the vowel lengthened by effectively by poetic license. So once more then. Yang Buddha Siddho Parivannayi Suchim Samadhim Anantarikanyamahu Samadhina Tena Samo Navijjati Idampi Dhamme Ratanam Panitam. Final time. Yang Buddha Siddho Parivannayi Suchim Samadhim Anantarikanyamahu Samadhina tena samo navijjati idampi dhamme ratanam panitam. And that's it on this video.